for the app builder, everything assumes that you're building everything in Airtable. So I'll go over what that looks like. But if you've done anything in Airtable, this is very much a layer on top of it. And so excited to show you all. Welcome, I'm Michael. I'm founder of Worldwide Studios. Our main goal is to help people learn how to build with the latest in AI, whether you're coding up your first voice agent or you're testing out new tools like Omni. It was released 2 weeks ago. And when in the release world of AI tools, it is very, very new, let's say. I'll share kind of the pros and cons of using a new tool. A main goal for this session, we'll go over an introduction of what we got for a demo cooked up for you all, which is how to analyze customer feedback if you have a bunch of transcripts, show the platform, show the workflow, and then the goal at the end of this is to be able to have a discussion. So if you have any questions, we're gonna use the chat to queue up questions in live time. If it makes sense, I'll answer on the spot. If it doesn't make sense, I'll answer at the discussion at the end. So let's just warm up the chat right now. In the bottom right, just share what's the latest AI tool that you've used that you've really enjoyed. For me, Lovable has been one that's been really delightful, especially on like the front end side. But feel free to open up the chat. And nice, Steve's used GenSpark. Awesome. Notebook LN. People are sleeping on that between the automated podcasts that you can interact with and the summaries. Such a great tool. Awesome. Welcome, Joseph. We're just warming up the chat. Share in the chat an AI tool you've used recently. Ooh, subconscious AI. I haven't heard of that. Gonna add that to the list afterwards.
It's like a synthetic persona platform.
Yep. Yeah, I think the synthetic and simulated data with LLMs is crazy. I've seen people use it for political campaigns, for product feedback, on healthcare. Just saw a doctor use it in a whole workflow with Lovable, and they won a hackathon. So nice. And Ashton also uses NAM. That's a classic. Cool. So we're just gonna jump right in. So in terms of this workflow, we're gonna pretend that we're working with teenage engineering. For those who don't know, they may just made great design products. For whatever reason, went with a smart tennis racket this morning. Not the best render, but we're gonna run with it. And so the scenario here is we just did a bunch of customer interviews. So we have the transcripts. Think you could use Google Meet now has Gemini baked in getting transcripts. You could use Granola. You could use any meeting recorder, assuming even Zoom. Assume we have the transcript, and based off the transcript, what we're trying to do is create a dashboard for the full team to be able to classify the sentiment of the feedback and filter out actionable feedback for what the product team can use. And so the main constraint here is used Omni Builder and timed it for 15 minutes just to see. I think for no-code apps, the speed to deployment is important, and any bug you hit along the way, that's part of the build process. So used about 15 minutes for this build and took 2 iterations to get here. And then even though I'm showing it for customer interviews, anything you have for transcripts could be sales calls, could be team meetings, could be customer support calls, anything you want a layer of analytics on. This is one really interesting way to use the Omni Builder. And so how I got here, I don't have interview data I could use for this demo, so I actually simulated it. So just as Sam was mentioning, the main prompt here went to Gemini Pro. I find that the reasoning models do a little bit better of imagining personas. I was like, hey, make a CSV of 10 different customer feedback calls, make 5 really enthusiastic, 3 pretty neutral, 2 really mad at it, and let's just format it in this way. And so in terms of the data, what that looks like coming into Airtable, we've got the name, we've got the email, and we've got some kind of transcript that was just made up. And so because Omni is built on top of Airtable, if you have a set of data, that can really help make the app just more robust right out of the gate. And so we've got these first 3 columns are synthetic. This will be import, which I'll show you. And then in terms of what we built in Omni, built an interface where we can have all of the feedback in one spot classified. So classified by positive feedback, notable quotes, and the overall sentiment summary. So think of this like a summary dashboard. Can also filter, and then also a visual sentiment dashboard where once all of the data is in, we just have one source of truth. And so the interesting thing, the thing I really enjoyed about using Omni and Airtable in its latest version, haven't used the app building prior to Omni, is you have everything in one spot. So you've got all of your data in one spot. That's like a traditional Airtable where you can put in different columns. And my favorite feature is actually the field agent where you have AI-enabled columns, which I'll talk about in a second. You can build out automated workflows. So as a calendar is created, you could add in a row based off of that specific event. As you can add records, you could kick off specific workflows. So cool to see that they have automations. They're starting to build that in. Interface is one of the newer features. So some of the features they demoed aren't live yet, but this I think is what really helps make it a full app, web app-based development tool where you've got the backend and front end all in one place. And then lastly, being able to connect forms to this too, so your database is actually accessible. For those familiar with Airtable, this is nothing new, but seeing all the pieces come together under Omni, it's pretty interesting. So that's the lay of the land for Airtable. In terms of how, and let's just do the demo first, and then I'll walk through how it works. So in terms of adding or importing, again, the assumption is we have these transcripts on our computer. So I'm just going to upload the sheet. We're going to add it to the feedback record. So it's in this. And we can see here we've got name, email, transcript. So it's right. And then let's just import it. Okay, so actually it did everything in one go, which is why I was taking a second. So what we can see is it brought in the names. This was the header column. We can delete this one. We don't need this. We've got different names. Alex is twice because I just did that as a test before this. So we've got 2. We can delete that for just that. We've got the emails and we've got the transcript. So again, this is all the information coming into Airtable. And then the secret sauce behind this specific demo and with the new Omni Builder is being able to have smart columns. They call it field agents, but you can think of the field agent just as an LLM call that can either search the web, run automatically, or you can run on command. You can pick which model you want to use. Could be like a base model like 4.0 or a reasoning model like o3. I just used 4.0 for this example because 4.0 is pretty good at single classification. And what it's doing is it's pulling information from the transcript column, and it's now doing specific prompt. So for this one, we're using LLM to classify sentiment, classify as positive, neutral, negative. You can make as robust of a prompt as you need for the specific classification. This is just for the sake of demo. And it's pretty good at just doing zero-shot work. So we save that. So in terms of all these sentiments, it's getting these sentiments from the transcript, thinking about what does that look like how positive or how neutral. And it looks like it's over-indexed on positive, because remember we said at least 2 or 3 neutral, but it did catch the negative ones. Then from there, what other information we're also getting out is we're getting competitor mentions. So same exact thing. This field is a field agent, which is using the transcript to say extract all competitor names and lists, just so we can see based off of conversations, what are other people using? So when you're doing customer feedback, it's helpful to see what other suggestions or what else they've used. We've got sentiment for price. This one's set manual just to show that you don't have to have it all automatically. You can run for specific sets of data. So there's a human in the loop here just for what makes sense. And we can see for this is sentiment for price, and we're seeing some negative for costing too much. And we can start seeing that the price is actually, maybe it's not causing a bad experience, but there's definitely a correlation here between negative overall sentiment and negative price. So maybe they're connected. We can double click into that. I really like this feature, being able to extract notable quotes. So it's extract the top 2 to 3 positive quotes exactly as they are from this transcript. And what this is doing is we don't just want the classification as a black box. What we really want here is specifically, what is this user saying that's good? So we're extracting just kind of the highlights here. We can see this column didn't run, which I'll explain in a second. And then we've got the summary and also suggestions. So in terms of the power of Omni is building this out so that you've got these different workflows that can run on top of data. And we've got a question from Sam. Do you need an API key? You don't. So how Airtable works for these kinds of calls, similar to other app-based builders, app-based platforms where it's credit-based. So depending on the tier that you pay for Airtable, depends on how many credits you get. So this is the team plan, which is the lowest paid plan. It's about 15,000 credits. I ran through three examples to get ready for today. Just imported this data twice. Haven't hit any credit limit. So we can see at the end, if you're curious, see how much credits there are. But it's a credit-based system. So the number of times you use the AI depends on the credits. So that's how they keep it all in one. In terms of Omni itself, so this is kind of the data. I think this automated classification and extraction is one of the most interesting parts. And if we just go back to the interface, which makes this more of a web app and less of just a platform or a database that you can share, we can see here that now for the overall sentiment, we now have it classified by that particular sentiment. You can click into the full field, and based off of it, we can see the summary of why something's positive, why something's negative. So we can say here, the overall sentiment is mixed. While this person appreciates the power, is concerned about the lack of control for ground stroke. So there's something in the design that that person didn't like the experience of. Same thing with this one, and pricing came up as one of the reasons to be negative. So we've got the overall dashboard, and we also have a visual dashboard here that shows, hey, based off the records, here's a screenshot you could use in like a weekly team review, for example. All of these interfaces are publishable, so you don't have people who aren't on the Airtable, who aren't running these workflows, they can still see the interfaces. So just like Airtable has some good sharing abilities, these are all publishable, so you can share the interfaces and people can click through or filter the data in a visual way, in a pretty intuitive way. So those are the main demo for this app. In terms of how the app was built, so Omni itself is treated as a chat wrapper around Airtable. And if you've used Claude's Artifact or Gemini Pro's Canvas or ChatGPT's Canvas, you've got the AI on the left, which you can talk to, and then you've got your application on the right, which is everything connected to Airtable. And so in terms of, let's go back into previous chats. In terms of building out this app, I just used a really simple prompt that said, hey, help me make a customer feedback tracker. I know I want a dashboard of sentiments. I knew the structure of the data because I knew I was going to be importing it. And then I knew in terms of the things I wanted to do for AI classification, I just gave it some ideas so it wasn't just zero shot. What I found previously, if you just like give it one line of like, hey, make me a customer dashboard, it will just do whatever it wants. So just like with anything with AI, a little bit of direction goes a long way, especially for something like data structure. And then I was also just like, I don't know what I don't know. Added like a feature for me. I like doing that when building out apps or different things because you can see how smart this particular platform is. And so in terms of, it's super interesting for their chat. It's pretty interactive. So as soon as it builds it, it offers you to take a tour. It gives you some of the setting features. So overall, it's really nice on how it starts to lead you into the specific parts of what it built. And then one thing it didn't do was it didn't make a visual feedback. So I just said, hey, can we make sure that on the interface, this particular one, it's like I really, really want something visual. Like a lot of the demos that when they launched this were like visual interfaces or dashboards. So I was like, make this visual. So they did that. It updated there. And the one thing that it did miss, so in terms of where Omni is right now, it can create entire structured backends with Airtable. It can suggest different interfaces. It can even design light prompts in the field agent. Some of the gaps right now with Omni is I got a lot of errors and bugs when trying to make these specific columns smart. So I can show you what that looks like here. So when we say feedback for improvement, this particular column didn't run. And it didn't run just like a couple other ones because Omni didn't make them a smart column. So in terms of what that looks like, very easy to improve. So in terms of UX UI, it's really nice to do it manually. Like even if the AI doesn't do it automatically, you go into edit field. There's a little button down here that says automate this field with an agent. And you can see here, depending on what, how you want the data structured, we'll keep long text here. You can enable web search, you can enable run automatically, and you can pick your model. And so you can just prompt it. So for this one, take out the main 1 to 2 quotes that has constructive feedback. And the power for Airtable is being able to insert any prior data that it has. So we could feed in other columns that it has. I'm just doing one shot based off of the transcript, like, hey, let's just do that. And it's gonna say, hey, it's gonna change other things. And then let's run that here. So when doing something like this, where you're really starting to use the power of the field agent to automate different parts of the data enrichment or data structuring, this wasn't connected to Omni well. And again, caveat, this is 2 weeks old. My guess is every single week this will get better from Airtable side. And it's a pretty ambitious thing to have this work within that. So what Omni is good for, it's good for setting up the whole macro structure. It's good for setting up and suggesting different interfaces and different even like structures for the data or form. And then the last thing that it's really interesting on too is because it's set up as a chat window, you don't just need to build with Omni, you can also talk to your data. So you can say, what are the most negative comments? And I think this is one thing that really makes this a pretty robust, not just app builder where you're launching it and then you're tweaking it yourself, but also just a co-pilot for any data or any workspace that you have on Airtable. It's being able to read through the records, the notes, and any information you have, and hopefully it should answer. Let's see. We've got design issues. Nice, that's super specific. And then let's see if it, and it's actually linking to that specific record too. So we can see is we've got a basic RAG-based QA here, where it's actually referencing everything in Airtable. So you start thinking about just the possibilities here. Not only do you have something like a shareable interface, but you also have a chat that you can actively build with, or you can also get questions from. And so that's this demo. That's the Airtable. I would say overall, in terms of tools, it's one of the newest. So it's a little bit finicky in terms of like getting specific features out or really understanding like the AI under the hood. And those are things that can do that can happen manually. And the last thing I'll share too for this specifically is there are a lot of really interesting demos they shared with new interfaces. So I see in the chat, we've got a question of like how much customization is there for the dashboard? I think right now that's one of the biggest areas to improve from Airtable side. So some of the demos that they shared with their launch were things like, let's see if this pulls up. If we zoom in here, some of the things they demoed were like custom 3D dashboards. So if you have like a 3D model, you made like a splat model of a product, you could view that in the gallery. Or there's also another one. The maps one was super interesting. They showed like finding a venue and everything was maps based. So in terms of some of the new interfaces and new dashboards like maps, 3D canvases, those aren't live yet. They're set to be live in the next couple of weeks. So when building with Omni, I was like, hey, I want this example. Initially, I wanted to show like different map examples. And it was like, hey, I just don't have access to that yet. So certain things on the interface are still being shipped. They've demoed some things that are on the roadmap to come out, which pretty common in the age of AI. People will tease things that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, just to get people's attention. It can be frustrating from user side, but it is what it is, especially as it's so experimental. And then when starting to think about other ways to update the interface, anything that's already been baked into Airtable for the interface you can share. So you can do things like, so even though Omni generates things, I think the one thing that I also like about this, if you use a tool like Lovable or Bolt, it feels like all the code is really locked in just line by line. So if you want to edit things, you now have to either vibe code your way out of edits, or you have to manually figure out where you want to change things. Because Airtable was built no code from the start, things like changing the data source, changing the title, changing how the filters work, everything is just like click and edit. So in terms of like anything that you could do previously, so let's turn this into a bar chart instead of a table, for example. Anything you previously could have done in Airtable, it's very customizable. And I actually like that about this interface, because when I think about true no-code app building, if I've got to like do an LM call just to change the title of the app and it rewrites the whole code base, it's not an effective use of LMs, but also it's not that great of an interface yet, right? I think that's one thing that Airtable also has going for it is you have all of these things in one place, and you can either use Omni or not, and you can hide it, or you can use their regular no-code builder, which pretty customizable just in terms of what they allow for. So there will be some limits there because you are relying on Airtable, but overall, basic things that are beyond just database sharing, can be done. Awesome. That's it for the demo. I think in terms of other things just to watch out for Omni, the new interfaces are interesting. The maps, the 3D visualization, like I mentioned, being able to use data you already have that's not enriched. I think that was my favorite part of using Omni specifically, was being able to build out field agents that could edit or add to specific fields. I think that's really rich. You don't have to build out an automation in the background. You can actually do it all in Airtable. And overall, I see where the potential is. I think for Airtable, for anyone who's already in Airtable, I've seen a lot of people use things like Make or NAN. I think what Airtable is trying to do is keep people within the Airtable ecosystem. And I would say it's automation light right now. So if you want to do things like send custom emails, you can. If you want to do other things like scrape specific websites and create your own databases, probably better to stay as like a combo tool. So it's just really interesting to see a legacy no-code database platform really stay on the edge of AI and build it out as an app builder. It's a really new direction for them as a company, and it's a really exciting to see that their fundamentals like connection to the databases, connection to forms, and even their automation workflows as they've set up in the last couple of years. It's really interesting to bring them all together. So like the product, I'd say it's about a 6 out of 10 right now, but that's just because it's super new. That's all I got for the demo, all I got for the walkthrough. Happy to answer any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. Feel free to unmute. We covered a lot because I wanted to make sure it was worth recording and watching again. You all will get the recording afterwards. But if you have any questions about specific use cases or general questions, Airtable or other tools wise, happy to answer them. And if nobody has questions around Airtable, feel free to share. If you just want to build something, happy to just jam on what you're looking to build on. It can be an open discussion. We used all different kinds of tools in the last couple months.
actually have an idea for something I was trying to build with no code because I don't have any coding experience as of now, but I have like a couple ideas. I'm a current rising sophomore at Cornell. And I had this idea for like a peer-to-peer rental platform for just clothing, especially in terms of like the nightlife, like going out clothing, because I know a lot of girls end up borrowing dresses from each other, from a friend of a friend of a friend. And I was just thinking I could make it more efficient and maybe profitable for some people, like renting it for like $2 or $3. But I don't have any coding experience. That's why I was really interested in hearing about a no-code platform. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, when you think about testing out, especially like a marketplace idea, your goal is you just need something that people can click on, probably ideally mobile friendly, and then also something people can pay. And so my main recommendation to start, just use Venmo and try something like Airtable. And what Airtable is, you can create a form where people can submit the images of their items, add in a description and post it, and then everyone has access to the gallery. So to start, it could just be something as simple as an Airtable. It will take you less than a half hour to set up, make it just good enough. Text it to a friend, have them look at it on their phone. If they hate it, take in that feedback, iterate on it, see how far you can push the Airtable platform. And then in Airtable, there's the ability to put in different buttons, or you could even have it go through email if you need a log of everything. And I would just figure out what's the simplest interaction where in one click, someone can message you and then you send a Venmo request. And that's kind of like the hackiest version of like week one, like, can you get 5 friends to kind of use this? And I do think customer feedback is more important than ever because you can build a bunch of things, but it doesn't mean people want to use a bunch of things. And so even scrappier, I would say you probably don't even need Airtable. Just make a group chat. Hey, 3 rules to this group chat: photos only, like purchasing yes or no. And then if you've got to debate something like prices or you're haggling or pickups, do it in DMs or something, right? So when you think about testing it out, it's never been easier to test that out, and doesn't need to be AI first. You don't even need crazy platforms. I think the question for you is just like, can you get 5 friends to do what you expect and then pay you? Or you pay them because you're building it up as a marketplace. And so figuring out what that MVP looks like, you're really testing kind of the user behavior behind it and the things that need to be true. And you can build up from there. Once you get way too many people in the DM and no one wants to scroll past like last week's items, now you've got the Airtable because that can centralize it and you can filter it. Once Airtable is broken, everyone's like, why are we Venmoing you? Now you can set up like a Stripe account and do that for automatic payments. So my main recommendation is just figure out what the smallest thing is you need for people to start trying it. And it probably actually looks like a group chat. I don't even think you need an Airtable to start.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, exactly. Like, and then eventually you could build on features like, oh, inventory management. Like, is this dress already with someone who has it? When is it expected back? But that's like phase 2, you know, once you just prove that people are willing to engage with this product. Yeah.
Yeah.
As Michael said, like it's easier than ever to test your ideas. So I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
I think the one caveat to the MVP, it's really easy just to hustle that. I think the question is like, how do you delight your users where they either want to share it or they just start texting you thank you? I think we kind of lost that in the age of AI. Everyone is building out chat interfaces. You can chat with your Excel sheet. You can chat with your email. You can chat with your meetings. I don't think chat is the best way to delight people. I think it's pragmatic. It's very pragmatic as kind of a use case. So when you think about doing one thing that could delight your customers, could you take their image of an item and then a photo of them and then get them to wear it? You're like, hey, this is how you'd look with this, or here's how you would look with these accessories in this image. There's a lot of different image models available right now. Be a little bit expensive on your side. The credits are a little bit more expensive, but for like $1, if you could delight a user that's then going to spend $5, $20, or $50 or more, that's worth it. So I think as you're designing it too, especially from an MVP perspective, think about what's possible in July 2025 that wasn't possible a couple months ago or a year ago. And right now being able to combine images and then send that to people, especially when it comes to clothing. How nice is it that you can kind of see how the color works with your skin tone? How nice is it you can kind of see like different accessories and you might be able to say, I didn't know I wanted those earrings, but I might want that. So definitely a useful mental model for anyone on this call building too.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Any other questions either on Airtable or on ideas that people have?
Thanks, Michael. It was like I'm an Excel power user who's just starting to use Airtable, and this kind of blew my mind a little bit because I've got a lot to learn now.
I'm glad that's the goal. And I find that when coming from a platform like Excel, you understand exactly what happens cell by cell, formula by formula, and probably from a data structure perspective. There's so much being built on top of Airtable. It's kind of nice to kind of like see the forest for the trees and go, oh, okay, I might have to try out some of the automation, might have to try some of the field agents, or might have to try some of the interfaces. So that was the goal for this call, is like how is Airtable moving as a platform, so you get out of the single cell view where you've got all your data, and you can start looking at how can you use this with your team, with clients, or for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for my use case, I guess what I have to think about now is, do I do this or do I just sign up for a CRM? Because really what I'm trying to do is manage a campaign, basically. So this looks like it's going to shake up the CRM world.
Yep. I think Airtable, I would say other tools like Lindy, Gumloop, NAN, or Make, they're making it so easy to enrich CRMs, to transform CRMs, to update CRMs. I think what I've seen from a lot of small businesses, startups, and individuals can really start building out the simplest structure you need, and then even automate updates too. So if you don't want to be in clunky CRMs or legacy CRMs because they're too costly or they don't do what you want, I think it's never been a better time to be in like DIY AI, where you're just building for your specific use cases.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Awesome. Well, if no one else has any questions, feel free. I'm going to send the recording afterwards. I'll send the links out just so you can see them. If you have any questions, feel free to send a follow-up email. Happy to answer questions. We help people go 0 to 1 and build in 2-week sprints. So if you need any support while building, or there's anything we didn't discuss, just shoot an email. Happy to help.
Really? I'm going to take you up on that.
Please do. Send a note over. I'm just curious to see how far people can build with things. So that's Worldwide Studios just set up just to help people build. We just had a global CEO in the education side build out an AI assistant for their email inboxes. In 2 weeks, they went from it was 2/3 of their emails replied to within 5 days to 100% of their emails replied to within an hour at 92% accuracy. So these new tools are really enabling teams to do a lot of things that previously weren't possible. So that's why we do this. That's why we do this. Show people what's possible and see how they can solve their own problems.
I'm going to write to you.
Please do. Awesome.
All right.
It's great to meet you.
Take
care.